Mom, can we go on the yacht? Adrian's eyes sparkled with excitement. Melissa gazed at her son's hopeful expression while repeatedly reading the email from her mother displayed on her monitor. The June sunlight illuminated her office in the accounting firm, housed in one of the high-rise buildings in the Old Port Historic District. Through the window, the calm waters of Casco Bay stretched out in brilliant blue. "Yes, Grandma has invited us," Melissa replied with a gentle smile, though her words carried a hint of hesitation. Behind that smile lay deep concern, and her fingertips trembled slightly over the keyboard. "Adrian, promise me something. Stay close to me no matter what happens." Melissa spoke softly as she touched her son's soft cheek. Adrian, though young, seemed to sense the anxiety in his mother's voice and nodded emphatically. 2 years had passed since her father's death. From that day forward, her mother and sister's attitudes had changed dramatically. When they discovered that their father had secretly transferred the patent rights to Melissa, her mother's eyes held a coldness she had never seen before. That patent, which generated annual revenue of $1 million, had created an irreparable rift in the family. "The company for your sister Caroline, and the patent rights for you. What a selfish decision." Her mother's words cut like a knife. Dressed in luxury brands, she appeared more like a female CEO robbed of her inheritance than a widow grieving the loss of her husband. Since then, family gatherings had become frigid affairs. Their treatment of Adrian, in particular, had changed as if he were an unwanted presence. At Christmas gatherings, while other grandchildren received piles of presents, Adrian's gift was merely a modest stationery set. Melissa could never forget her son's forlorn expression that day. "We're nothing but strangers now." The words her sister Caroline had thrown at her during a party still stung in her heart. Once as close as best friends, Caroline now managed the company as their mother's right hand, and her eyes held nothing but cold contempt when looking at Melissa. The morning of the cruise dawned with gentle early summer sunshine enveloping the harbor. Her mother and sister's appearance as they stepped out of a brand new Mercedes parked on Commercial Street seemed somehow unnatural. Their overly cheerful greetings and excessive displays of intimacy only heightened Melissa's anxiety. "My, Adrian. You're quite tanned. Can't you even afford a cheap parasol for him?" At her mother's sarcastic remark, Adrian instinctively moved closer to his mother, as if seeking shelter behind her. Melissa gently pulled her son closer while internally heaving a deep sigh. The luxurious yacht could accommodate 12 passengers. However, the atmosphere separating the 4 family members standing on deck was deeper than the vast ocean. Her sister, dressed in a white sundress, deliberately maintained her distance from Melissa. "What a lovely yacht, Mother." Melissa's comment was met with only a perfunctory smile. She unconsciously tightened her grip on Adrian's small hand. Something was going to happen. That premonition squeezed at her heart. The white sails caught the wind as the yacht slowly pulled away from the shore. As the mainland receded into the distance, Melissa's inner anxiety transformed into certainty. This invitation had some ulterior motive. Gripped by an ominous feeling that came in waves, she held her son even closer. The sea breeze flowed pleasantly into the yacht's main dining room. The setting sun cast soft light upon the tables set with elegant dinnerware. However, this beautiful space was filled with heavy tension. Melissa felt uneasy about the deliberately arranged seating positions. Her mother Virginia occupied the head of the table, with Caroline stationed at her right hand. Melissa and Adrian had been guided to seats nearest to the exit. "How do you find the Maine lobster?" Her mother's voice dripped with artificial politeness. As she tilted her expensive wine glass, her gaze toward Melissa harbored something malicious. "It's delicious. Thank you, Mother." "Mom, this soup is yummy too." Adrian's innocent comment was met with a moment of silence. Caroline exchanged meaningful glances with her mother. "Yes, the clam chowder is this restaurant's specialty. But I suppose you can't afford such luxurious meals every day, can you?" At her mother's sarcastic words, Melissa momentarily lowered her eyes. Feeling Adrian's expression cloud over, she responded quietly. "We live quite happily within our means. Yes, thanks to Father's patent." Caroline's voice rang out, cold as ice. She slowly raised her red wine, holding the glass up to the setting sun. Her gesture barely concealed calculated malice. "That patent should have belonged to the company. But Father transferred it to you for some reason." "How curious." "That was Father's wish, Caroline." "His wish?" Virginia sneered. "His judgment was clouded toward the end. You must have influenced him somehow." "Mother, that's—" "Be quiet." Virginia's sharp voice rang out. Adrian trembled slightly. Melissa instinctively grabbed her son's hand. "You were always shrewd. Even when you got divorced, you had the company pay your settlement." "That's not true." "You're such a liar," Caroline interjected. "I know you were leaking company secrets to Father." "What are you?" "I have proof." Caroline pulled out her smartphone, appearing ready to show some images. However, it was clearly a provocation. Melissa squeezed her son's hand tightly. "Adrian, would you play on deck until dessert time?" "Don't worry. I'll come get you soon." Adrian looked at his mother anxiously but did as he was told and left the dining room. Watching his retreating figure, Melissa exhaled deeply. "Finally, the nuisance is gone," Virginia said. "Let's get to the point. About transferring the patent rights." Her mother continued in a lowered voice. "Would you consider returning them to the company?" "What do you mean?" "It's simple. Sell the patent rights to the company. Of course, we'll pay you fair compensation." Melissa silently stared at her mother. Virginia took an elegant sip of wine and continued. "How about $5 million? It's not a small sum. You know that's less than half its true value." "Don't be greedy," Caroline laughed coldly. "We're being generous here. Father entrusted this patent to me. For the company's future." "The company's future?" Virginia raised her voice. "All the more reason. What can you possibly do with it?" "I have plans. Using this patent." "Don't make me laugh." Caroline's voice rang out sharply. She stood up and walked over to Melissa's seat. "What can you possibly do? A mere accountant can't manage patents for a major company." Melissa remained seated in silence. The waves had grown slightly stronger. "Think it over," her mother said, as if delivering an ultimatum. "This is your last chance." "I decline." A moment of silence. Then her mother's expression changed completely. "You two don't deserve such a luxurious meal." Her voice no longer held any pretense of civility. Caroline smirked while sipping her wine. "We'll enjoy the cruise. You can enjoy the ocean." Before Melissa could comprehend the meaning of those words, she felt herself being pushed with great force. As she lost her balance, she desperately tried to grab the edge of the table, but her fingers clutched at empty air. She heard Adrian scream as he returned to the deck. He ran to help his mother, but Caroline deliberately extended her leg. Adrian stumbled and was thrown into the dark sea just like his mother. The cold seawater enveloped them both. As Melissa desperately searched for her son among the waves, her mother's final words pierced her ears. "Goodbye." The yacht abandoned them, disappearing into the twilight sea. Cold seawater surrounded her entire body. Melissa desperately searched for Adrian. In the twilight waters, she could see her son's small head bobbing on the surface. "Adrian! Can you hear Mom's voice?" Rocked by the waves, Melissa began swimming toward her son. Fortunately, the sea was relatively calm. She was grateful now that she had enrolled him in children's swimming lessons. That thought brought a small warmth to her heart. "I'm okay." Adrian's voice carried surprising composure. The swimming skills he had developed at weekend swim school were now saving his life. "Don't move from there. I'm coming to you." As Melissa approached her son, she quickly surveyed their surroundings. The yacht's lights were already distant, fading into the twilight. Though it was June, the seawater was colder than she had imagined. Suddenly, something glinted beneath her feet. Melissa dove deep and grabbed it. An orange life jacket. It must have fallen overboard with the table during their fall. "Adrian, put this on." As she helped her son into the life jacket, Melissa calmly analyzed their situation. The current was flowing eastward. Land couldn't be too far away. But would any boats pass by at this hour? "Mom, I'm cold." Adrian's voice trembled. Melissa embraced her son, sharing body heat. "It's all right. Someone will come for us." Those words were meant to encourage herself as well. In the distance, she could faintly hear an engine sound. Melissa called out desperately. "Help! Someone!" Adrian began to cry out too, his small voice joining hers. Their voices echoed across the quiet sea surface. The engine sound gradually grew louder. An old fishing boat slowly approached. The white-haired man standing at the bow threw them a life preserver. "Grab hold." Melissa helped her son onto the boat first, then climbed aboard herself. Lying on the deck, she exhaled deeply. "I'm Joe Murphy," the white-haired man introduced himself. "I was fishing nearby when I heard the screams." Murphy smiled kindly as he offered them blankets. His warm gaze brought tears to Melissa's eyes. "Thank you. I'm Melissa Williams. This is my son Adrian." "Williams?" Murphy's expression changed. "From that real estate company?" Melissa nodded silently. Murphy seemed about to say something but held back. "Well, let's get you to the harbor." "But how did you end up in the sea at this hour?" Just then, Melissa's pants pocket glowed. Her cell phone, protected in a waterproof case, had miraculously survived. "Mr. Murphy, would you keep this phone as evidence? My mother and sister tried to kill us." Murphy's expression turned grave. As the Harbor Union chief, he was an influential figure in the community. Everyone knew of his strong sense of justice. "Tell me everything." Melissa told him everything: the changes after her father's death, the conflict over the patent rights, and the events of that night. Murphy listened in silence, but his eyes burned with anger. "Unforgivable," Murphy said in a heavy voice. "Using money as an excuse to their own daughter and grandson." Adrian clung to his mother while wrapped in the blanket. The trembling of his small body squeezed at Melissa's heart. "I have friends at the harbor," Murphy continued with determination. "There should be witnesses too." The fishing boat slowly approached the harbor. The city lights reflected on the dark water surface. "But their yacht is all ready." "Don't worry," Murphy said. "A yacht that size definitely leaves a trail. Plus, there are harbor surveillance cameras." Indeed. The departure records, security camera footage, and the phone recording. These would all serve as evidence. "Mr. Murphy, will you help us?" "Of course," Murphy answered firmly. "There are people in this town who think they can control everything with money. They need to be taught about justice." Then Adrian spoke in a small voice. "Mom, why did Grandma and Auntie try to kill us?" Melissa held her son tightly. There could be no adequate answer to such an innocent question. Sometimes people's hearts become clouded by money. "But we have something more important." "Something important?" "Yes. The bond between you and me." Adrian nodded silently. His eyes held a deep understanding despite his young age. When the fishing boat reached the harbor, several other fishing boats had already gathered. Murphy's friends. Some had gone to secure the surveillance camera footage. "Let's hold off on contacting the police," Murphy said. "They can't move until we have evidence anyway." The sound of an ambulance siren approached. Murphy's wife had arranged for it. "Stay at our place tonight," Murphy said kindly. "Mary will be glad to have you." Melissa bowed deeply. The warmth of these strangers gradually warmed her chilled body. After receiving basic treatment in the ambulance, Melissa and Adrian headed to the Murphy home. A warm light flickered in the old fisherman's house. Mary, who greeted them at the entrance, rushed over as soon as she saw them. "You poor dears," she said in a voice full of motherly love. "Come, I've prepared some warm soup." The aroma of clam chowder wafted from the kitchen. Unlike the expensive version they had tasted on the yacht hours ago, this carried a simple, heartfelt fragrance. "The battle begins tomorrow," Murphy said quietly. "But don't worry. There are still people in this town who believe in justice." Melissa nodded silently. Her mother and sister probably never imagined that their arrogant actions would provoke such anger from so many people. "Mom," Adrian squeezed his mother's hand. "We'll win, right?" "Yes, absolutely," Melissa answered firmly. "We have justice on our side." A heavy atmosphere hung over the police station in the early morning. In the chief's office, Melissa played the recorded audio. Her mother and sister's cold voices echoed in the quiet room. This is decisive evidence of attempted murder. Veteran Detective Thomas Riley nodded with a grave expression. Several pieces of evidence were already laid out on his desk: harbor surveillance camera footage, yacht navigation data, and witness statements. Arrest warrants have already been issued for Mrs. Williams and Caroline Williams, Detective Riley announced quietly. The arrest team is en route now. Murphy stood silently with his arms crossed. His presence had helped expedite the police response. Are mother and sister still on the yacht? No, Detective Riley pointed to a map. We've confirmed they disembarked at another harbor last night and headed to Mrs. Williams's vacation home. Just then, the detective's radio crackled. Her mother and sister had been arrested. In the police station's interrogation room, her mother sat handcuffed in her expensive suit. Beside her, her sister hung her head, her makeup smeared. Security camera footage played before them. Do you still claim this was an accidental fall? Detective Riley's voice rang out sharply. Call my lawyer, her mother said coldly. I have the right to remain silent. Indeed, the detective nodded quietly. Then how about this audio? The recording played, the dinner conversation, the words just before the fall, and the decisive goodbye. Her mother's expression twisted slightly. We have sufficient evidence, the detective continued. Attempted murder, conspiracy, and evidence tampering. The maximum sentence could be life imprisonment. Just then, the room's door opened. It was Melissa. Her mother and sister's expressions froze. The daughter they thought dead stood before them. How? Her mother's voice trembled. Surprised? Melissa asked quietly. Did you think we were dead? Her sister Caroline began to laugh hysterically. Lies. These are all Melissa's lies. We didn't do anything. Do you really think so? Melissa took out her phone. Look at this. The screen showed footage from the yacht dinner. Melissa had secretly recorded everything, the moment her mother pushed her, the moment Caroline tripped Adrian. Everything was documented. Why? Her mother's voice trembled. Why such preparation? Seeing how you both changed, I sensed something might happen. Melissa stared into her mother's eyes. They no longer held any of their former warmth. We could have discussed the patent issue. Discussion? Her mother sneered. That patent belongs to the company. It can't be entrusted to someone like you. Do you really think so? Melissa pulled out a document. This is Father's letter. It explains why he entrusted the patent to me. Her mother silently stared at the letter. It contained her husband's final thoughts. Melissa has integrity. She can see the company beyond just numbers, she sees it through the heart of its people. With my patent, I trust she will put it to proper use. Father believed in me, Melissa continued quietly. But mother, you trampled on his wishes. Be quiet, her mother shouted. You're no daughter of mine. Just then, small footsteps were heard from the hallway. Adrian peeked timidly through the door, with Mrs. Murphy watching over him from behind. Adrian. Her mother's voice trembled for the first time. At the sight of her grandson, her mask began to crumble. Adrian slowly approached his grandmother. Grandma, why did you try to kill us? At this pure inquiry, her mother was lost for words. As if finally realizing the weight of her actions, her shoulders began to shake. I. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Human emotion flooded out from beneath the mask of arrogance. I'm sorry. Her mother's apology was also her final resistance. She quickly suppressed her emotions and regained her cold expression. This isn't over. No, it certainly isn't, Melissa answered quietly. The trial will reveal everything. Several weeks later, in the courtroom, the judge's solemn voice rang out. The defendant, Virginia Williams, is hereby sentenced to 5 years in prison for attempted murder and conspiracy. Then came the sister's sentence. The defendant, Caroline Williams, is hereby sentenced to 3 years in prison for aiding and abetting attempted murder. The courtroom fell silent. Her mother and sister accepted their sentences stoically. But their eyes already reflected the color of defeat. Outside the courthouse, a crowd of reporters waited. The attempted murder case involving prominent local figures had become national news. Justice has been served, Murphy said. Melissa nodded quietly. Beside her, Adrian held her hand tightly. Mom, is it over? Yes, Melissa embraced her son. Now we can start our new life. On the drive home, the ocean viewed through the car window shone more brilliantly blue than that day. The light reflecting off the waves seemed to signal hope for the future. Justice always prevails. At Melissa's words, Adrian nodded firmly. A new life for mother and son was about to begin. Early summer, 1 year later. In their new house in the Old Port Historic District, Melissa gazed at the morning sun. In the garden, flowers planted by Adrian bloomed in various colors. Mom, I'm ready. Turning at Adrian's voice, she saw her son in his swimming championship uniform. Since that incident, he had become even more dedicated to swimming. He had faced the water continuously as a way to overcome his fear. It's the finals today, Melissa hugged her son's shoulders. Are you nervous? Nope, Adrian shook his head firmly. Grandpa Murphy said he's coming too. At the pool side of the competition venue, a large crowd had already gathered. Among them was a familiar white-haired man. Adrian. Murphy waved. Beside him were his wife Mary and their fisher friends. Go for it, young dolphin. Adrian responded to their cheers with a beaming smile. Melissa reflected on the changes over the past year. After the incident, the Murphy family had become their emotional support. Weekly dinner gatherings, fishing experiences, and above all, unconditional love. The whistle blew and the race began. Adrian's swimming no longer showed any trace of fear. He pulled ahead of the other competitors, cutting through the water's surface powerfully. Go! Loud cheers rose from the spectator seats. Melissa watched her son with tender eyes. Touch! The scoreboard lit up with first place. As Adrian emerged from the water, congratulatory cheers erupted from all around. Congratulations, champion! Murphy rushed over and lifted Adrian high. His smile was filled with grandfatherly affection. This calls for a celebration, Mary said. Tonight, it's my special clam chowder. On the way home, Adrian spoke quietly in the car. Mom, I wonder how Grandma and Aunt Caroline are doing." Melissa felt her hands tighten on the steering wheel. Her mother was serving her sentence in prison. So was her sister. Though visits were permitted, she hadn't yet found the courage. "I'm sure they're spending time reflecting. You know," Adrian continued with a serious expression, "I'm not scared anymore. Because we have a new family now." Those words brought tears to Melissa's eyes. Indeed, they had gained a new family. Though not bound by blood, they were bound by ties of the heart, an irreplaceable family. The company's reconstruction was also progressing steadily. New products utilizing her father's patent were receiving high market evaluation. However, what Melissa focused on most was building trust relationships with employees. A company moves by the hearts of its people. She had made her father's words from the letter her management philosophy. Beyond quarterly financial reports, she regularly held dialogue sessions with employees. This approach was drawing attention in the industry. One day, during a dinner gathering at the Murphy home, an unexpected topic arose. "Melissa," Murphy began quietly, "there's a letter from the prison." It was from her mother. Opening it with trembling hands, she found words of apology written in small letters. "I don't expect forgiveness. I'm just truly glad that you and Adrian are safe." At the end of the letter was an old family photograph. Young Melissa and her mother smiled brightly. Where had that pure love from those days gone? Can people change? Melissa wondered. Mary smiled gently at her question. That depends on the person. But it's important to give them a chance. That night, after Adrian had gone to bed, Melissa wrote a long letter. A reply to her mother. "We were indeed hurt. But that hurt taught us something, what true family means." She enclosed a photo of Adrian's swimming competition with the letter. Her mother had 4 years left to serve. Melissa hoped that during that time, they could gradually repair their relationship. Letters had started coming from her sister Caroline as well. Her writing no longer showed any trace of her former arrogance, instead conveying sincere regret. "I want to start over. After my release, I'll begin everything anew." A new season was approaching the harbor town. People gathered for Sunday barbecue in the Murphy's garden. Children ran around on the lawn while adults chatted peacefully. "Hey, Mom," Adrian said while munching on a hamburger, "we're happy, aren't we?" Melissa hugged her son. The sea breeze gently caressed their hair. "Yes, very happy." In the distance, fishing boats quietly returned to port. Their figures seemed to watch over their new life. The dark memories of the past certainly remained in a corner of their hearts. But those memories had made them stronger and taught them the true meaning of happiness. Melissa gazed at her son's profile in the sunset. Surely, various trials still awaited them in the future. But they were no longer afraid. They had formed bonds stronger than blood. Our new life has just begun. At those words, Adrian nodded firmly. The setting sun over the harbor town gently illuminated mother and son's new step forward.